I'm your host, Rashad Mitchell, the content of creator of this YouTube channel. And today we're going to be continue on, maybe finish this book that I've been reading for a while, June 4th, 1976. Next month marked the 50th anniversary of the greatest game ever played between the Phoenix Suns and the Boston Celtics. We're going to resume with chapter 10. It's not over till it's over. Let's get into it. When you come on, make sure you subscribe to the channel, like the content, hit the like button. As Phoenix and Boston were about to embark upon a third overtime in this already remarkable Game 5 of 1976 NBA Finals, Brent Musburger and Rick Barry made it known on CBS's telecast just how impressed they were with the amazing guts, determination of the Suns and Celtics players. You played 58 minutes of basketball and have to go 5 more minutes this late in the season. That's an incredible feat, said Barry. And I think right now, coming down to a situation where you're going to have this game decided by men who are not the top stars, perhaps Dave Campbell sitting on the bench, Charlie Scott on the bench, Alvin Adams on the bench. Absolutely incredible. This is some basketball game right here, ladies and gentlemen. You're seeing a fantastic effort by both ball clubs, something that you can remember for the rest of your life. We talk about pressure situations, Musburger said. You play 48 minutes, then you play 10 minutes of overtime. You got men going up and down the court. I honestly don't know how these athletes can stand the tension and the pressure of this game. It's a tribute to every man in the NBA what's happening here tonight at the Boston Garden. Now we come to the third overtime of by far the most incredible basketball game I've ever witnessed. Phoenix won the opening tip of the third overtime, but Dick Van Arsdale traveled, giving the ball to Boston. A few moments later, Don Nelson banked in a jumper from the left side to give the Celtics a 114-112 lead. The Suns tied the game with Ricky Sobers laid the ball in off a nice pass from Curtis Perry. John Havlicek then missed a jumper from out front, while Gar Hurd went for the rebound. He was fouled by Paul Size, who fouled out. When Paul fouled out, remember Glenn McDowell, I tapped Steve Kaversky, because that's the position he played, power forward, and told him, get ready to go in. But then all of a sudden, Tom Heinsohn hollers, Mac, get in there. So I jumped up, went in the game. Tommy knew that I was pretty fresh. He wanted me to get out there and basically run. Whoever was going to be guarding me, run them to death. Thanks for hitting the like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. That way I could probably get some easy shots. 9 people tuning in, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new to the channel. All right, 2 people liking the content, subscribe to the channel. The sweat was dripping from every player on the court. You have to realize that old Boston Garden, there was no air conditioning. It was an unusually hot day in Boston that day. We called Alma Court. It was so hot, guys were even having problems getting up and down the floor. It was a tough scenario. Nobody had any real juice at all. Glenn McDowell and Jim Orr were the only guys on the floor who had any energy. Phoenix took a 116-114 lead when Perry hit a jumper from the right. Havlicek responded with a nice pass inside to JoJo White, who drove for a wide open layup to the tie of the game. Hurd gave the Suns a 118-116 lead with 2:47 remaining when he swished a rainbow jumper from the left baseline with Ord guarding him 2 turns later. White came a jumper from the left side to tie the game at 118. A few moments later, White drove towards the basket on the left, but was met there by Van Arsdale. So he passed the ball to McDowell on the right. McDowell banked in a short jumper to put Boston back up on top, 120-118, with 139 to go. John McLeod wanted a timeout, but no one saw him. Hurd missed the jumper from the left, and the ball was batted to Don Nelson. Several passes later, Havlicek threw the ball inside to McDonald on the left baseline. McDonald sank a short turnaround, fadeaway jumper with Van Arsdale guarding him. The Celtics now had a 122-118 lead with 114 to go. Havlicek said McDonald had been working with me forever on that shot, how to catch, turn, pivot, then go up with the shot. So I felt extremely comfortable when I turned and took the shot. That baseline shot by McDonald was a tough one, Bob Bryant said. It was a very difficult shot. I don't know how he made it, said White in the Globe article. As a Phoenix timeout, Van Arsdale inbounded the ball to Westfall, who dribbled to the right, turned around with Havlicek guarding him, banked in a turnaround fadeaway shot to pull the Suns within 122 to 120 with 109 remaining. White responded by connecting on a wide open jumper from the left for a 4-point Boston lead. Van Arsdale then missed the jumper from the left baseline with White guarding him. McDonald rebounded the ball, dribbled, and was fouled by Perry with 36 seconds to go. By this time, White was so exhausted that he sat down in the backcourt while everyone else was in the floor, walking up the floor for McDonald's free throw attempts. As the Celtics were in the bonus, McDonald sank both free throws and increased the Boston lead to 126 to 120. Those 6 points McDonald scored during that minute plus period was crucial, said Ryan. But those were the big shots of the game. We knew the other guys, this kid came into the game and made those shots. It was devastating. I'll be said in the Globe. I wasn't nervous at all because the adrenaline was running. Said now, every time I went to the free throw line, I said, I'll make this free throw, I'll make this free throw. And in that situation, I said the same thing for the first free throw. And when the second free throw came, I said it again. I wasn't nervous one bit until I got home after the game. Said, what the blank did I just do? The unlikeliest guy, Glenn McDonald, comes into the game and did what he did. Thanks for letting people tune in. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button. The unlikeliest guy, Glenn McDonald, came to this game and did what he did, said Kuberski. I don't know what time he saw, but it turned out to be a great move. I thought he could do the job, but I didn't expect him to do what he did. I admitted in the Globe. So, said Kuberski in the same article, Glenn was a good practice player, but he would tense up in games. But for him to be put into a game as intense as this and do what he did was unbelievable. Glenn was a lifesaver in that game, added Scott. He came in, did a great job. We had a lot of confidence in the guys who were on our bench. Guys like Glenn, Jim Ord, Kevin Stakem. Basketball is a game of matchups. And we felt like our starting five was better than Phoenix's starting five. And we also felt that our bench players were better than their bench players. I've been kicking myself for 25 years that I didn't sub in the fast Nate Hawthorne to guard McDonald, said McLeod in the Globe. I'm glad to hear John say that, Hawthorne said in the same article. Every year when this game comes on TV, tell my wife he never would have scored those bags if I were in there. Following the Suns' final timeout, Vance Arsdale inbounded the ball to Sobers on the right. So Sobers drove toward the baseline, toward the middle of the lane, laid it in to cut the Phoenix lead to 126, 122. Cut the deficit. So 126, 122. Nelson called a timeout when he couldn't find anyone else open to inbound the ball. After the timeout, he inbounded the ball to Havlicek on the right, but an intentional foul was called on the Suns, sending Ord, not the best free throw shooter, to the line with 31 seconds left. We called Ord. Ricky Sobers asked me sarcastically, do you think you can do it? And I said, hey, I wouldn't be there if they didn't think I could make them. I wasn't nervous at all. Not at all. Before the playoffs started, I was practicing free throws at a lot to be prepared, and sure enough, they fouled me. And all converted both free throws. And the Celtics had a 128-122 lead. The Suns refused to die. However, Westfall dribbled the ball up the court and drove to the left, spun around the air, a complete 360, and banked in an unbelievable shot with 25 seconds to go to make the score 128 to 124. Paul could get a shot off at 3 a.m. in a rainstorm, said Perry in the Globe. At that point in time, Paul was the guy who always wanted the ball, said Dennis Autry. He always tried to get a little edge. He was the perfect guy to take those clutch shots because he had enough confidence that he didn't worry if he missed it. If he misses it, he misses it. He took the responsibility on himself. Had the confidence that, hey, I can do this. Westfall was terrific, Bianchi said. Of course, Westfall had played with Boston the 3 previous seasons, so he had a certain comfort level there, said Adams. He had a real comfort level whenever he had the ball in his hands, but especially at the Boston Garden. So it wasn't a surprise that he was producing right and left and at both ends of the floor. Nelson inbounded the ball to right, White, who dribbled around while being double teamed, then passed the ball to Havlicek on the left. Havlicek brought the ball up the court, then threw it to Ord in the left corner, looked to pass him down on the basket, but he couldn't control the ball. So was grabbed it, immediately heaved it to the left of the court to Westfall, who laid it in with 12 seconds to go. The Suns were within 2 points. Havlicek inbounded the ball to McDonald, passed it back to Havlicek, who threw a bounce pass to Nelson on the left. Nelson dribbled once, then threw the ball up the court to Ord on the left, but Westfall, who else, got a hand on it. His momentum carried him out of bounds, however. Ord dribbled it twice, then passed the ball to White on the right. White dribbled around as the clock finally ran out. Hundreds of Celtics fans rushed the court to celebrate the amazing victory for Boston. And this time, there was no doubt that the game was over. The final score was 128, Boston. Phoenix 126. Had my fingertips on it. I felt the ball, I just couldn't get my hand on it. Westfall recalled in the Globe. He almost got it, said Ord in the same article. I was worried about two things. The first was him getting it. Second was him traveling because I had to reach so far to get it. I just wanted to get it over to JoJo before he fouled me. I've been sitting for so long at that point. So some of those guys played 60 plus minutes. I remember even thinking, okay, this is the end of the third overtime. Scoreboard says Boston is ahead, but I bet there will be a fourth overtime the way this had gone. But it finally hit me. You've kind of morphed your way back through the crowd. And they had a great entrance right there at the center court. Most teams enter off the ends these days. It was one of those things where we just couldn't quite pull it off, said John Wessel. It was big shot after big shot after big shot after big play after big play after big play, Perry said. We didn't give up. We had to beat us, and they did. Said Jerry Colangelo. The pressure of the game. That the heat in the building, the circumstances, took a toll on just about every player on the court. We just ran out of fuel. It was a blue collar team. McLeod told the Globe we weren't even supposed to be there. It was supposed to be a Celtics Golden State final. They were guys who accepted coaching, worked their tails off. To the credit of our players, they never gave up, McLeod said, to end the awesome endings. I'll say one thing about that 7-16. They refused to quit. White scored 33 points and had 9 assists and 6 rebounds. Cowens had 26 points and 19 rebounds. Havlicek scored 22 points and had 9 rebounds, 8 assists. While Silas totaled 17 points and 14 boards. McDonald and Orr were wound up, scoring 8 points apiece. Sobers Westfall each scored 25 points for the Suns. Sobers added 6 assists. Perry was a monster with 23 points, 15 rebounds, and 6 assists. While Adams contributed 20 points, 9 rebounds, and 5 assists. Hurd scored 17 points and pulled down a dozen rebounds. When we had those leads, we just couldn't hold on, said Hurd. I think it was one of those situations where we just didn't have enough to finish them off. So many guys made incredible shots under intense pressure, White said in the Globe. Said Perry in the same article. Everybody who played in this game made at least one big play. That just doesn't happen. All of our emotion was exhausted, Russell said. The locker room was quiet. Hardly anything was said. You could see that all of our emotion had been drained out of us. You could play your heart out for that many minutes. You come away with the loss. It's devastating. Players were exhausted. So when that game ended, said, my teammates and I were physically and mostly drained. So was Heinsohn. Heinsohn was a very intense coach. Said Steve, the poor guy, he struggled with his weight. His blood pressure was at its limit. I didn't even know if he was going to survive the game. When we got into the locker room, they asked me a question. I was there, sitting there. All of a sudden, I fainted. I was totally dehydrated. Heinsohn said, they took me to the hospital and weren't going to let me coach in Game 6 and Sunday because they were concerned that I might have a heart attack or something. Red Auerbach came to the locker room and said, don't get too upset with the referees, get dressed and go home. You're going to be important on Sunday, Scott said in the Globe. He and Joe calmed me down. I was very emotional player. I was unhappy because I had fouled out 5 straight games. I didn't think I was fouling that much. Said Havlicek in the same article, I honestly never thought they could beat us. That even if we lost Game 5, we still win the series. I remember Gar and I were sitting in the locker room at the game, said Perry. It's not like we were going over the game. We were just kind of looking at each other at the game. I went into the Phoenix locker room, and the Village locker room, and the Boston Garden was about as bad as it could get. Remember, there were nails for the players to hang their clothes on, and the showers had cold water. Jerry Angelo came in and said to the players, hey, we walking out of here with our heads up high. We got nothing to be ashamed of about this game tonight, and there were all kinds of fans roaming around. Said, if any fan gives you any trouble, you do whatever you want to do. So we're all walking out of the locker room together. Here's Red in front of the Boston locker room smoking a cigar. And Skyler Angelo looked at him and said, Red, why don't you get some security in this building? Said, I thought it was great. Everybody was mentally and emotionally drained, Bianchi said. We win that game, we go back home and win the series in 6. Said Adams, we were a little down, but we were thinking, too bad we didn't win this game. But we're going back to Phoenix for Game 6. And hey, we haven't lost too many games at home in the last month. Let's get back and win that one so we get to a Game 7 back here in Boston. Now it's deciding what that one be. But he's going to continue on with Chapter 11, the aftermath. Even though the Suns lost that unbelievable Game 5, it had a tremendous effect on the greater Phoenix area. Without a doubt, that game galvanized the community like nothing had ever done. Brad Colangelo said in the Globe. No single game in the history of the franchise did more to get the Suns national recognition than that loss. The impact was immediate. Nothing else ever did so much for them than that, said Joe Gilmartin, author of the book The Little Team That Could. Or they did. The fellas roused the Phoenix Suns in the same Globe article. Less than 40 hours after Game 5 ended, Game 6 began on Sunday, June 6, 1976 at 12:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. It was horrible scheduling. It was bad for us and for the Celtics to have one day to fly cross country, and then play the next day. And it was an afternoon game. It should never consider that kind of thing in the NBA Finals where you don't have a little bit of time to rest and get across country. You fly home Saturday, get home Saturday afternoon sometime. We got to be at the gym at 10 o'clock the next morning or something like that. Game 6 was fairly close throughout, but the Suns just didn't seem to have that spark they had 2 nights earlier. I think there was a little hangover from what happened in Game 5 on Friday night. We came out just a little bit flat and not charged up as much as we should have been, said Dennis Archery. Just didn't respond like we would have liked to. But even the Phoenix Suns were not their typically crazy self. It was almost like Game 5 took more out of the fans than it did the players, said Joe Prosky in the Globe. Ricky Sobers agreed that was eerie, he said in the same article. The game was tied 20-20 after the first quarter. Boston led 38-33 at halftime. Phoenix cut its deficit to 57-56 after 3 quarters. The Suns held a couple of brief leads in the second half, but the Celtics went on to win 87-80 for the franchise's 13th NBA championship. Troy Scott scored 25 points, 11 rebounds, and 5 steals. Dave Collins had 21 points, 17 rebounds. For Phoenix, Evan Adams scored 20 points, had 9 rebounds, 6 assists. Thomas had 19 points and 6 rebounds. I think that notion that we were drained from Game 5, we never got back for the next game. Well, the fifth game was going to win the series because we had Boston lost Game 5. It would have been spent mostly just like we were. We prepared the same way for Game 6 as we did for Game 5. But before the game and coming out for warm-ups, we just didn't have it. It wasn't there. We couldn't get back up, couldn't get the emotional high again, Russell said. I suppose we might have been mentally exhausted from the game on the Friday night. Adam said, did we run out of steam? Did we run out of magic? Did the Celtics just kick it up a notch? I don't remember them kicking it up a notch. I thought we were a little flat for whatever reason. I think Game 6 was a case of fatigue, said Hurd. The guy who had the best game was Charlie Scott, who fouled out before the overtimes in Game 5. So Al Bianchi, I think there was somewhat of a letdown, but I think that with the group we had that just tried so hard. And sometimes when you do that, you start to press a little bit. After the triple overtime game, no one slept. Everybody was all up. All was up all night in the hotel, all McCoy. And we had about 7 o'clock flight. Came back to Phoenix. We had been such emotional loss that it was just tough to get back going again. And what happened Sunday happened. It was back forth, and the Suns had some runs. It looked like they might be able to do it, but they were not ever really able to finish off Boston. They just kind of seemed to be spent. Down the stretch, about halfway through the fourth quarter, we kind of took control, said Steve Kabrowski. I think everybody. We took a somewhat different stand. I don't think we let down. They just beat us. We're not going to have 2 great games ever played in a row. Don't wait. This is supposed to beat us. It beat us by much. They weren't good. I think Dave, Charlie, and JoJo too were going to play the whole game. The Stars all played at least 40 minutes, no matter what. They were going to win, said Jim Ard. I think the stoneheadedness of the players said we just aren't going to lose. Finish this book out. We just played a better game. We were motivated to end it, and they were motivated to keep it going, Cowan said in Legends with leading. We ate that title from that team, said Tom Hodgson, fighting health issues, making the trip out to Phoenix and coached the game. It wasn't the best team I had, but it was a gutsy team. The Celtics were happy when it was over, Bob said. It was relief, not joy about, except for one person, JoJo, who had his peak Silas, Havlicek, Cowens, and Don Nelson. Glad it was over and ready to go home. Dick Van Arsdale and Austin Ennis said that championship series didn't mean it as much to the Celtics as it would have meant to the Phoenix Suns. Game 5 was the start of a nice 10-year run for us. It really established us. Two additions to Phoenix in 1976-77 were point guard Ron Lee and small forward Ira Terrell. Lee was a first-round draft choice out of the University of Oregon. Terrell was a third-round draft pick from Southern Methodist University. Ron, the Tasmanian Devil, was just a dynamo. You just wind him up. He ate powdered sugar donuts and had a Coke before every practice. He'd take charge and he'd flop. He'd stand in the front of a cement truck to take a charge. He was one of those guys who chased down anybody on a fast break. Ron was the hardest playing guy I think I ever played against, both in practice and in a game. He just went all out every play and didn't know any fear at all about whether his body was going to take a beating or not. He dived into anything to try to make a play. There wasn't a loose ball that he didn't dive for ever, said Colangelo. He was a big crowd favorite because of his tenacity, willing to give up his body. Ira was a really good ball player, said Barry. He had a good jump shot. He moved very, very well without the ball. He was a good passer. Ira would get out and run, and Bianchi said he gave us some athleticism. Fortunately, hurt in period. Both missed match almost half a 76-77 season due to injuries, 12-game lose streak in late February. Every early March, doomed the Suns, who fell to 34 and 48, last place in the Pacific Division. We had such high hopes to head into that season, said Adams. New to Phoenix in 1977-78 were small forward Walter Davis, point guards Don Booz, and Mike Bratz. Davis was a jewel of the three. He was a first-round draft choice out of the University of North Carolina. Booz was traded from the Indiana Pacers for Sobers. Bratz was a third-round pick from Stanford. Walter came in from the very first day and said, I belong here. He didn't worry about, oh, I'm a rookie, so maybe I shouldn't do this, or I shouldn't take over, let's try to take over. He knew how good he was. I think he could have been one of the all-time great small forwards in the history of the league. His 15, 17-foot shot was just incredible. Fortunately, later on, he became a big guard because of the way the team was comprised. But he was a very good big guard. As a forward, though, he was just unstoppable. They called him the Greyhound because in college, he could run a mile in less than 5 minutes. He was an incredible athlete. Walter was one of the fewest jump shooters ever to play in the NBA. Colangelo said. They called him Sweet D because his jump shot was about as sweet as it could be. He was the greatest shooter I've ever been around, said Westfall. His mid-range jumps was money in the bank. He made it look so easy when he scored. He was a devastating offensive player. Down could guard some people, could put some points up on the board. He just went out there quietly and did his job, Bianchi said. He was one of the smartest ball players in the league, Perry said. He was steady and made very few mistakes. He was one of the really good passers, too. Mike was a really good shooter. Side backup point guard, side backup guard who could play either guard position, said Westfall. So the Suns improved to a 49-33 in 1977-1978 season, second in place in the Pacific behind Portland. They were upset by Milwaukee, however, 2-0 in the first round of playoffs. Folsom Straight picked us to win it all. 1977-78. In the first two-thirds season, we played well, Archie said. But in absolute contrast to the 75-76 season, we went into the playoffs not playing very well. Our defense had gotten a little soft. We just didn't come into the playoffs with a lot of energy. 8-game winning streak late in the 1979 season helped the Phoenix Suns to a 50-32 record. Second place again in the Pacific Division behind Seattle. Halfway through the schedule, the Suns acquired power forward Truck Robinson in a trade with the New Orleans Jazz. Before Truck came to Phoenix, said Adams, we had so much trouble with guys like Elvin Hayes and Spencer Haywood. Truck came in with a lot of credentials. He was a rebounder and a scorer. Just a powerful player. Once we got him on the team, we had a chance against some of those big fours who had trouble with before. Truck was a very talented and versatile, said Westfall. He was a powerful, but he could play out on the perimeter just as well. He was one of the great rebounders of his time. He was big, strong, tough guy. Rick said he'd take you, post you up, shoot the mid-range shot. The Suns made a deep run in the 1978-79 postseason. They outset Portland 2-1. In the first round, Kansas City 4-1 of Western Conference semifinals. In the conference finals, it led to the Seattle 3-2. Then lost a 1-point heartbreaker at home and fell 114-110 in Game 7 Seattle. Next season, 1979-80, Phoenix improved to 55-27. Got the third place in the Pacific, much of that due to Magic Johnson joined the Phoenix Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in Los Angeles, leading the Lakers to a first place finish. Defeating the Kings 2-1, the first round of playoffs. Suns were easily beat by the Lakers in 5 games in the Western Conference semifinals. Phoenix continued to be a regular season regular in 1984-85, advanced to the conference finals in 1983-84, and with just a 41-41 record, reminiscent of the team's 75-76 playoff run. Unfortunately, the Suns' opponent in the Western Conference finals was the Lakers, who ousted them in a hard-fought 6-game series. It was one of those situations where the West got better. Herb said Portland had a great run with Bill Walton and Maurice Lucas and those guys, and the Lakers had a great run with Magic and Kareem. Said Bianchi. I always said to John McLeod, LA's point guard Magic Johnson's bigger than our center. It's hard to get to the final, said Westfall, who trades to Seattle for Dennis Johnson following the 1979-80 season. You can never take it for granted. A couple of teams in the late 70s were arguably better than that 76 team. If you don't take advantage of that chance when it's there in front of you, it doesn't always happen again. And a 3-down season in the late 1980s, Cotton Fitzsimmons returned as head coach in 1988-89, helped return the Suns to prominence. It was none other than Paul Westphal, who in his first season as a head coach led them to the 1993 NBA Finals, where they lost to Michael Jordan and Chicago Bulls. Phoenix qualified for the playoffs most every season all the way through 2009-2010, but the franchise has experienced many tough times since then. As for the Celtics in 1976-77, out was Paul Size, who, because of a contract dispute, signed with the Denver Nuggets, and then were former UCLA teammates Sidney Wicks and Curtis Rowe. Both were power forwards. Wicks was sold by Portland to Boston. Rowe was traded from Detroit in the same deal that sent Size to the Nuggets. Sidney was a guy who took Paul Size's position, but he wasn't exactly the same type of player as Silas. Said Heinsohn. Silas was a rebounder, defensive player, leader of the team. Sidney was more of a scorer than anything else. He was really effective for me his first year with us. Sidney was one of the greatest college players who ever lived, Bob Bryant said. His NBA career was distinguished by diminishing returns. His points per game diminished every year he was in the league. He was a frustrating talent. Heinsohn wanted him to be more of a rebounder and left as a shooter, but Sidney rebelled over that. His attitude to Celtics was the antithesis of the way John Wooden had raised him at UCLA. Sidney was universally disliked and despised by the Celtics fans. Everybody was excited about Sidney coming to the team because Steve Cooper conversely had a couple of great games at the start. Then I don't know if it was an attitude change or what. He just didn't seem to care mostly about the game. There was just some spark missing. Curtis never fit in from the start. He was hurt and off, on and off. Never really got into it. His game showed he went downhill from when he was with Detroit. But he might have been the ultimate mercenary. We got no impression that he cared who won the game. There was a young Cedric Maxwell limiting a loss after the game. Said to him something along the lines like, "Don't worry about it, kid. They don't put the W's and L's on a paycheck." That's a famous line that resonates in Boston. Bo was a mediocre player. Our team started to disintegrate when Silas left, said Heinsohn. Paul was a linchpin, said Kevin Staker. He and Dave Collins put together what I think the best 1-2 punch when it comes to what big men are supposed to do in the league. It was a very unique chemistry. Paul was a winner. He did so many things to help you win ball games. Collins was so upset about losing Silas, he voted and took more than a tough sabbatical from early 1976 in November to mid-January 1977. The whole morale of the team went south, Heinsohn said. On top of that, Scott broke his wrist, missed almost half the season. Celtics were inconsistent in 1976-77, but late push resulted in a 44-38 record. Second place in the Atlantic Division, 6 games behind Philadelphia. They knocked off San Antonio 2 games behind the first round of the playoffs before to the very end, and a losing 2 tough 7-game series to the heavily favored 76ers in the Eastern Conference semifinals. Philadelphia had Dr. J, George McGinnis, Lord Freed. Now won't be free. The Celtics did very well to take them 7 games. I was off the beat and covering baseball then, so I was in the stand for the Celtics game 6 and winning in Boston. That series was the last hurrah for that group. I checked basically outplayed the J all series. JoJo played well. They just didn't have it in Game 7 at Philly. I remember being in the press room at Fenway Park covering the Red Sox trying to keep track of that game. This was just a bad team. Scott said, without my absence and Cameron's absence during the regular season, I've had a 7th game against Philadelphia at home. Maybe we would have won back-to-back championships. The bottom finally fell out for the Celtics the next 2 seasons. Havlicek retired. Scott and White were traded, stopping in for a cup of coffee with Dave Ring, Kermit Washington, Marvin Barnes, Billy Knight, and Bob McAdoo. There was a coaching cover herself, Heisen, Tom Sanders, and even Counts as a player coach. The whole thing blew up because of a change in ownership, said Heisen. Even Red Barback's career was in jeopardy. The Celtics dropped 32 and 50 in 1977-78 and 29 and 53 in 1978-79. Soon after, though, several moves got the Celtics back in the groove. In 1979, they signed for Larry Bird, whom they had drafted in the first round of Indiana State the year before. Also in 1979, they hired Bill Fisher as head coach. That summer, in addition to Celtics, signed free agents like Gerald Henderson, the point guard, Emil Carl, small forward, and the great Tiny Archibald, point guard, came back in the shape in his second season with the Celtics in 1979-80, getting traded from the San Diego Clippers summer of 1978 when he was out of shape. I was confident Bird was going to be very good, said Bird. Right. I have a theory. But in the history of the NBA, you're talking about the elite of the elite players, the greatest of the greats. Except for 2 players, most turned out to be better, some much better than people thought they were going to be. Bird is in that category. He was far better than people projected. He got better and better each year. By 1960, he was the best player in the world. His one counts of everything that was great about basketball: the scoring, the passing, the hustle, the brain power of seeing things before they happen. Joe was one of the most finely conditioned athletes the Celtics ever had. He had good speed, quickness, a solid individual who you were happy to have on your team. He was hardworking and a good player. By the time ML came to Boston, he was coming off a season in Detroit, in which he was third in the league in the minutes played. He was going to be an all-purpose ball player, and he was. He was an important part of the puzzle. When Archibald came to Boston, he was still recovered from his Achilles problem, career-ending nearly. He wasn't a tiny of legend. In 1979, he reinvented himself as a pure point guard, not as an offensive first, defense second point guard as he was before. He led the league in scoring and assists while he was with the Kings. He was a brilliant one. He was fantastic. He played the point guard position the way he should be played when he was with the Celtics. Two key guard players who were acquired during this time period were Chris Ford and Pete Maravich. Ford was traded from Detroit early 1979. Maravich, who had been a legendary scorer with the Hawks and Jazz, signed as a free agent about halfway through the 1979-80 season. One other player, Maxwell, a small forward, had been a first-round draft choice 77 and 77 out of the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. Chris wasn't very fast, but he knew how to play the game of basketball. He was just a heady player. He could also shoot the ball. He was a great player, a great showman. Max really knew how to play basketball. He had a kind of unorthodox game. He looked like a part of his body was going in different directions. He was very with the guard, especially down low. He knew how to pass, move without the ball, and rebound down low. He was either going to score or get to the line or both. Zed could play defense too. Led by Bird, both players Robert Parrish and Kevin McHale, both of whom arrived in 1980-81. The Celtics returned to greatness, winning 3 titles in 1981, 84, and 86. They continued to enjoy success into the early 90s before falling on hard times, for the most part through 2006-2007. Next season, though, Ray Allen and Kevin Garnett added to the team that already had Paul Pierce also won the title since then, have been in the postseason on a regular basis. All right, so I'm going to start right here. Paul Westphal. We talk about him. He was always a student of the game. Stuff like that. So I'm going to skip this. Let's talk about the players that was in this game, their profile and stuff. I'm going to stop that. I'm going to go past that. Talk about Gar Hurd, Alvin Adams, Chris Perry, Keith Erickson, John Shoemake, Dennis Autry, Fred Saunders, John Wetzel. You look at the green and white, had Dave Cowens, JoJo White, Charlie Scott, John Havlicek, Steve Kaburski, Kevin Stakem, Ben McDonald. It's in order. That's it. I'm done with this book. So I'll be doing another book on Monday. The New York Mets, 1986 New York Mets. 1 year dynasty. I'll do something on that coming up. That'll be a good one. Because the 40th anniversary of that great team. That team was a great team, the Mets. In 86, Darryl Strawberry, Dwight Gooden, guys like that. Keith Hernandez, Sid Fernandez, Kevin McReynolds, I think was on that team. Gary Carter, Mookie Wilson, Rafael Santana, Ron Darling, Roger McDowell, Jesse Orozco. That was a great team. Ray Knight, that was a big time team. That team was good. Kevin Mitchell, guys like that, man. That was really, really good. So that's it, man. I'm done, man. I'm done with this book. Hope you enjoyed it. So I'm not gonna do no book tomorrow. I might do something different. Got some good idea coming up tomorrow. So I'm gonna do that. So like, subscribe to the channel. About 11:45, I'm gonna do a Bible study lesson. 11:45 a.m. I was gonna do it at 12. So I'm gonna change it. So 11:45, I'll be back with another live feed. Subscribe to the channel. Thanks for tuning in. Be back soon at about 11:45 for the Bible study lesson. Until then, talk to you soon.